Okay, we should be live on YouTube.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everyone. We are here with our 12th webinar, and so that makes it a full year we've been doing these. Glad you guys could make it. And I'm here with Curtis Jung. I'm Rick Sinclair. And we're going to be showing you how to add sounds to the Central Station 3, which would basically be station sounds, and they can be played. You can insert them into a route, which I'll show you how to do. This will be a very short presentation because basically it's very easy to do. And with that, I will get right into it. One thing you have to do is you need a WAV file. Now, whether you download it from your from the web from the internet, or if you create your own, it does have to be a WAV file, WAV. And basically, what happens then is you put a WAV file of the sound onto either a USB stick or an SD card that you slide into your Central Station 3. And the SD card is just a small card like what goes in your camera or whatnot. I would recommend using the SD card because it won't use the memory of the Central Station 3 because you're not storing the file on the Central Station 3, which if you do plug up your Central Station 3 with a lot of data, just like with a computer, it's going to slow it down a little bit. So I suggest using a SD card over a USB stick also. For me personally, because I like having the ports clear in back if I want to plug stuff into my Central Station 3. And also, normally a USB is a little bit larger and it sticks out the back of your Central Station 3. I know there are very small ones, which I had a very small one on my desk, but it is so small that I lost it. So I would suggest using the SD card. Plus you can have a lot of storage in it and it just stays there. It clicks right in the back, right below the port for the locomotive cards, and you'll see it. If you don't know it already, you'll see it. So anyway, with that, I have already loaded some sounds onto my SD card. I need to get into another screen. Sorry for the delay here. There's that one. I need too many windows open. Too many windows open. Here we go. Okay. So once again, here is our Central Station 3. This is basically the picture that comes in with the Central Station 3. It's the default that you get with it. Your diagram will be different. I've added a couple of small things. But what you want to do is to put a station sound in your event. You would go to your event edit screen. And I have one short event here where I have a locomotive that will basically my DSB Litra N209 is running along. When it hits this trigger K1, the speed will go down to 0. It'll blow the whistle, stop blowing the whistle, and then proceed again. That's just a simple little route that I have to test locomotives on my test table. So I want to add a station announcement, and you have to select where you want it. You can see the black bar. Wherever that black bar is, that's where the event is going to be inserted into the route here. So I'm going to choose sound file. And now you'll notice it'll go to CS3 and then WAV. And I'll cover this in a second, but it already has a bunch of files in it. So you can use one of these files. All you have to do is click on it. You can play it if you want to hear what it sounds like. Or you can just click OK. And there, it put that sound in my route. If you already know what it says, then you're good. Okay, so I don't want that sound. I want one of my custom sounds. Okay, now when you do put sounds on an SD card or a USB card, it needs to be in a CS3 file. The file needs to be named CS3 in lowercase. In that file, there needs to be a WAV file in lowercase, WAV. In that WAV file is where you put your sounds. That way on the SD card, it will be able to see and look for the correct file and the sounds. Same with the USB. USB, then it gets a CS3 file and then a WAV file, and there you have it. I have these, I have already loaded these sounds. Now, if you wanted, you could go back to this CS3 file and you can actually take these sounds off of here and put them onto an SD card or a USB card, USB drive, just by dragging and dropping it. Let me select it. So I don't know why you would want to do this, but you are allowed to do it. So if I go to the USB WAV, there's that file. I don't particularly want to do anything with it, so I'll delete it. Okay, so once again, I'll go back here. In this route, I want to add a sound. Click the plus once I'm in edit mode, sound file, SD card, WAV, and I'll use the ducky, and then click OK. And there, it put the ducky wave, it put it in the wrong place because I don't want the whistle to blow and then play the ducky file and then stop the whistle. I want this to be over here. So I had the cursor in the wrong place, but you can easily move stuff around by just dragging and dropping it. Once it turns light blue, you hold your mouse down. Once it turns light blue, you can move it around to where you want it. So I will close this, get out of edit mode, and that's all there is to it. What it'll do is it'll play the file. Now, there's two ways you can play the file. Well, I should say two places you can play the file. What you can do is in your settings of your Central Station 3, you'll notice you have a audio playback source, internal or external or both. Okay, internal, there's a speaker inside your Central Station 3, which will play the file. It'll play that station sound right at the Central Station 3, which, you know, you may not want that. Prototypically, you may not want that to happen. So what you can do is you can take your powered speaker. This is just a Bluetooth speaker, a very common speaker that's got a port to
You might
plug
want to
into
unshare.
power. It's got an auxiliary input also, and you take your auxiliary input cord, plug this in the back of the Central Station 3 in the speaker port, and then the other end into your speaker, amplified speaker.
Rick, do you want to unshare your screen and kind of point that out again so they can see it more clearly?
Sharing my screen. Okay,
Thanks.
So I'll go through that again. A powered Bluetooth speaker, which means it's got power to amplify the sound. I can plug it in with a charger underneath my layout, and it has an auxiliary input. And you need the auxiliary input for a cable, just a small 3.5 millimeter RCA jack. What are these, Curtis?
Those are 3.5. Do you need a stereo or a mono file?
Well, probably mono because there is only one speaker, but it works with stereo also.
When you can plug a stereo jack in there.
Yeah. So this goes right in the jack in the back of the CS3 for a speaker, and it'll play through this speaker, and you put this speaker underneath your layout or wherever, or in the station. It doesn't even have to be this big. It can be much smaller, and it will play the sound in the through the speaker. When you select, here we go. When you select external, okay, so there. External will be through the portable speaker you use. Internal will be through the speaker in the CS3 or both. So that's basically all there is to it. The speaker in the CS3 does sound like it's a pretty good speaker to me from when I've tried it. I can play it for you. I have a video that I did. I'm not going to do it because my microphone's too far away. But what I can do is I can share another window.
We also have a question regarding, and I believe I think it moves itself. Where is the location, I guess, that the WAV files go into?
Yeah, I answered that. I'll go through it again. Let me just demonstrate what it does here in this video I did. Okay. So
it's very quiet.
So there you have it.
You want to maybe post the link on that video? Maybe they can listen to it because the audio didn't really come through very well.
It probably came from my computer and then to the speaker or the microphone here. Yeah, I'll have to go find it, and I will post it in a little while once I'm done with the presentation. That way, you guys don't watch me search around.
I can post it. I mean, I have the link you sent. It's on the screen, so it's in the chat window.
I don't know what that link is.
That should be the video. Unless it's a video actually it could be that's the link for this webinar. Sorry guys.
Because it's on our Google Drive, so I'd have to go find it and get that link. And there's two of them on there, and I don't want you to get the wrong one because we'll get in trouble.
Yeah, you don't need that link. Sorry.
For people that don't have our sense of humor, I did have a different file. So at any rate, let me let me explain again. So what you're going to do is you're going to have this is a lot like the icons file that we did. You need a file on your SD or USB drive that is named CS3 in lowercase. In that CS3 file, you need to have a file called WAV in lowercase. In that file is where you put your WAV files that you want to play. So that's basically it. And then insert it into your CS3. It'll recognize it once you, let me share screen again. It'll recognize it when you try and put it into an event. When you go to add sound file, you can see that it says CS3 is where it's looking, and then WAV. It doesn't show the CS3 file here, but for the CS3 to see it, you need to have a CS3 file in lowercase. In that is a WAV file in lowercase, and in that is your waves.
Okay, so let me see if I can clarify this at least if I can talk it through, then maybe it makes more sense. So this, go ahead and share your screen again.
Okay.
Okay, so essentially, if the CS3 is selected, it will have a WAV file that's already built into the system. You can't really create that. But when you have a source, in other words, you have somewhere that you want to load it into the CS3, you have to create that file structure. In other words, like if he selected USB or the SD1 card, you need to have a folder that says CS3, and inside that folder, you need another folder that says WAVE. And once you have that, there's also another way that you can do that. So do you have sound files on a USB or an SD card that we can actually see, Rick?
Yeah, I just plugged my USB drive in.
Okay, so can you select on that for me? Select on USB, I guess it's 0.
So let me get these windows set. We can easily show you.
Unless I get control of your screen. I forget how we do that.
I can, I got it here. So, okay. So I will share, new share here. Okay, so this is what's on this USB drive right now. You know, several files, you know, just stuff that I throw back and forth. But there is a file that says CS3. This is what you want, this CS3 file. You need it named CS3 in lowercase. In that file, obviously we have icons because we've talked about putting icons in. We've a backup, it automatically does. You need a file that says WAVE right there, all in lowercase. In that WAVE file is where you put your sounds, your WAVE sounds. That way the CS3 will recognize it.
Okay, and now I want to actually go back to the CS3 window again.
Okay.
And then look at the contents of your USB stick.
Well, the USB stick isn't in there anymore.
Okay, well, I thought you plugged it in.
No, it's in my computer now.
Okay, well, let's just kind of go back to it too.
It says it's there because it doesn't know it's not.
Yeah, so just click on it anyways, because it kind of stays
stays
there. Now, the thing is, you would have, and obviously, I don't think you can see. I'm going to request remote control here and see if you give it to me here or not. Okay, so can you see the cursor now that I'm moving? So under this USB, if you selected USB, okay. All right. Can you plug in the USB stick then for me?
It's in it. Oh,
yeah, plug it in.
Yeah.
Because there's two ways you can add the files into it. One was the way that Rick mentioned, and then there's actually a simple way to kind of copy files into the CS3 from the USB. And I kind of want to just quickly point that out for you.
You can drag and drop them.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of want to show them that. So
I don't know that you have control here.
Yeah, that's okay if I don't.
But I can do it.
It says I have control, but I don't need it anymore if you can do it.
So I need to get out of this and get back into it because it's not recognizing it.
Yeah, it's the only way to sort of refresh the information sometimes is to get back into it.
Okay, so the USB file with this.
Yeah, so if you select WAVE, then you can see the WAVE file.
Okay, so what I can do is if I don't want the SD card or the USB plugged into it all the time, I can take this file, and if it'll let me here, there, drag it into the CS3.
And it will place it automatically in that WAVE folder of the CS3.
Automatically in that WAVE file, and we'll go down, and here it is, Ducky WAVE. So again, if you get a whole lot in there, you're going to slow down your Central Station 3 eventually. We don't know at what point We don't know how much, how many wave files you can hold in it in CS3 itself. It just seems to be a little bit better to go with an SD card, in my opinion.
Okay. Another related question: where can you download appropriate WAV files?
Anywhere you can, as long as it's a wave file, you can record sounds that are not waves, and then with some free software, you'll have to do a little research. You can literally just save a MP3, MP4 file as a wave file through these programs, and then put them on a card. As long as it's a wave file, it should work. I don't think the length really matters that much. If it's on a card, it's not going to take memory from the central station. So that's one reason why you leave it on a card. Any sound will work. So
yeah, I think basically you'll have to do a search for like wave files, because one, if you get them from other manufacturers, who knows what kind of licensings are on there. I don't think there's a set location. I know that if you have the programmer, then you do have access to some of the program sounds that Marklin has available. But or actually there's software, right? You can download the software for the programmer through marklin.com. Don't recall what that's called. It's part of the decoder programmer software, and then you might have access to the WAV files there. Okay, sorry, Rick, go ahead.
No, I'm looking up the file so I can share it, so people can see the get the link.
We have a question regarding locomotive stopping on events. We'll get to you on that question a bit later. I'm just going to wait for the segment to end. So.
Okay, I believe this is the link. Except it's not pasting. Apparently I can't paste the link.
Oh, you can't paste it in the chat window?
No.
Is that the Marklin link for the software?
No, this is the link to the video.
Oh. Oh, the one in Google Drive?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
Oh, because I didn't copy it. That might be my fault.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to see that little video that I just showed that you couldn't hear, there's the link to the file on our Google Drive, and it's really not much, but it does give you an example of what you can do with this. It can be, the sounds can be anything, and have fun with it. Have a sense of humor, and no hate emails because it's not a train sound. Okay, thanks, people.
Look forward to your replies. All right.
I think that's about it. I mean, it's a really short, it's really easy.
Should the SD card or the USB be formatted by the CS3? I think that's only if you can't read off it. I wouldn't worry about it.
I literally took the SD card out of the package and stuck it in the, I put a file on it, stuck it in the CS3, and it didn't see it. And so when I pulled it back out and plugged it back into my computer, it put a CS3 file in it and on it, and I believe a backup, just like when you put a USB drive or USB thumbstick in the back of it. It puts a CS3 file and a backup file, I believe, on it, I should say.
So when you plugged in the blank USB, it didn't recognize it, but then it put a CS3 and backup folder on the USB stick. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and the SD card.
Okay, so there's that's interesting, because what it probably means is it didn't recognize it because there was no folders in it.
Right.
And it's not going to the tricky thing about the CS3 is it doesn't really automatically update the information it has. It's sort of like the same issue we have when we ask you guys to connect to a wireless router. If you power up the CS3 first and then power on the router, it's not going to recognize the network. So the thing is, the network plug has to be plugged into the CS3 first to recognize it. So in this sense, he plugged in a blank USB stick, but it didn't reinitialize because it didn't know those folders were there. It put them in there. So essentially, I think what Rick was kind of getting at, you'd have to unplug the USB stick, and then you could probably plug it back in, and it would probably recognize it at that point.
Well, I didn't actually put a file, a CS3, and then a WAV file on it. I just threw the WAV file on the SD card and put it in the CS3.
Yeah, well, what I was saying is it didn't see. The thing is, when you plug in the CS3, when you plug a USB into the CS3, it's looking for a CS3 folder
Right.
with a backup folder in it. And since none of that's on a blank USB stick, it's not going to recognize it. But it did put those folders on the stick.
Yes.
So you'd have to basically unplug it so then it can recognize it when it gets plugged back in. That's kind of what I was getting at.
That's how I figured out it needed to be in a CS3 file and a WAV file. Yeah. Because I saw those files on there. It's like, oh, well, it probably needs to be in there just like the icons. And so I put it in there and off it went. It worked.
Yeah. So that should be that. Any other questions other than some stop questions? All right. Should I answer?
Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, it was really simple and easy. It took me like 10 minutes, literally, from never doing it before to having it work.
Yeah, we stalled on that. Okay, so let's go into this question here. Somebody referenced a previous Zoom call. There's a way to write events to control Loco stopping at signals without hooking up a signal block in the track. Can I go over that and explain? Yes, we can. However, it's sort of a process we don't really recommend.
Well, there's a couple ways you can take that question. Is he talking about track control and Schattenbahnhof with the M84? Or is he talking about a route making the locomotive stop?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking it goes either way in both instances. But what I'm getting at, what I'm seeing is that he wants to do this without any kind of a block track, like okay, so basically he says a signal block in the track. Now, a signal block is either, are you referencing an actual signal light or something like that, or actually something like an M84, which is more or less a block controller. It will actually stop a train. So let me kind of quickly display my screen here. So in this instance, I don't have any signals on here, but I control trains through this stop track. This is my stop track here. Am I not controlling it? Yeah, it's not controlling it. Oops. Let me just stop. So I control the trains through the stop track. It's not a signal, but it is a stop block. And if he's referring to being able to stop a locomotive without that, it's possible you can stop a locomotive, but it is not very effective. And let me kind of set up a scenario sort of like that, how that works. Okay, we'll go ahead and use this track plan because it's just better than trying to draw a new one. Essentially, what's going to happen is if you actually have an event that stops a train, and let me just create a new one, a new event. Okay, I can close this because I don't need to sit. And let's say it's basically this contact track. I'm going to use that to stop a train. Okay, so essentially what happens is when the contact track gets activated, it's going to send a control to a specific locomotive and say, stop at 0. And I'll just drag in a locomotive here. It doesn't really matter what it is. And that's actually your full command. When this contact gets triggered, it's going to set this speed on this locomotive to 0 and kind of show you how that looks. Let me open up a control window, get rid of this. Okay, and let's just kind of do this. I'll give it a speed, and this is going to be the train running at this speed. And again, you don't have to think about all this other stuff. Excuse me. All right, and when I activate this trigger, you should see the speed on the locomotive going to 0. If it's working right, and apparently is something not configured right. Yes. Okay. So let's see what the problem here is on this event. Oh, because I'm still in edit mode. So that's another issue. You have to get out of edit mode when you're testing your event scripts. So let's see if let's see if it works. Oh, still nothing. Yeah, I love it when I do this. Okay. Programming. Let's go to my event structures. That's FS23.
You're delayed up there for some reason.
Oh yeah, I got a blog on it. Let's see, initial.
You don't have an S88 connected.
Yeah, it's not part of the layout. Anyways, well, let's see if I can just kind of go through this theoretically. I just got all these things set up because I'm not connected to a train layout. All right, so the problem here is that normally, okay, if this was actually working, guys, and I'm sorry I don't actually have a working demo on this. I forget what I did on this last time. I think it was the FS wasn't set right. So let me go into this here. See if I can correct my issue. That's the contact. Edit. Sorry, I might be moving fast for you guys. Edit article list. K21. Let's see. I'm looking for S88 link to. Whoops. K210. That's this one here. Plus one. This should be direct. Hopefully this is right. Oh, yeah. This is a lot of reconfiguring. That's not going to help. All right, let's go back to theoreticals. Shut up. Don't understand you anyways. Okay, so essentially what happens is when this gets activated, because of my event script, and I'll pull up the event window again here so you can see it. Close this. When that gets activated, essentially this locomotive is going to go to speed 0. All right, so the problem here is that this locomotive, when it's resuming moving and it's moving around here, and it could be all the way over here at this point, right, on this right side. The next locomotive that triggers this is still going to trigger this contact and create this locomotive to stop. And this locomotive may have proceeded all the way over here to the top. So this is why we don't recommend doing software-based controls, because the contact itself doesn't have any way to identify which locomotive actually ran over that contact. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you. Again, this program is specifically meant to control the GG1. If I have, like, say, a duplex that hits this contact, it's going to make the GG1 stop. So it's just not really recommended, even though you can do it to stop the locomotive. And there is a macro in one of these events that we talked about the last time, and that was the shuttle macro. And the shuttle macro is a different animal because it allows a train to go back and forth on a line, and you can actually program it to stop a locomotive and reverse locomotives. But the thing is, on a shuttle line, a simple shuttle, it is only one line and you only have one train on it. It doesn't address two trains. So hopefully you get that. You know, like if this is a shuttle line and I had one point to point, which I don't, is a poor example. The thing is, if I had one train, it can control one train because it's always programmed for that one train. But adding another train, you can't tell the system very well how to gauge which train hit the contact track. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, it's just not recommended to do that. I tell people, yeah, programming locomotive events through just a regular routine on your layout, it's not very effective, and it causes some real problems. So anyways, let's I think that's it. Any other questions? This is sort of a Q&A for everybody. Let's see. I think I see a comment here. Yeah, there is a comment regarding the different file formats that the CS3 may be able to recognize. Yeah, I can't really get into that because it takes more explanation that I probably am not an expert on. So
yeah, and we probably will never sit down and explore all the file formats that the CS3 will or will not take. All I
yeah,
know is
and
a WAV file does work.
yeah, and, like PCs have 3 different file formats: FAT32 and NTFS. I don't even know what the file format that Apple's use. And the CS3 is basically a Linux box. So again, we won't get into that. So we can actually, unless you guys have some other questions, we can actually take a look at some of the questions that we've gotten in email. See if any of those apply. Of course, we'll have to answer them anyways later. Gentleman has a question about Marklin braking tracks. Is a Marklin braking track an isolated section of track that would otherwise receive digital signal except when the operator or computer program cuts off the digital signal and sends a DC analog feed instead? Interesting.
Yeah, is he talking about a brake module?
Yeah, it's interesting talking
of
about a DC feed. So,
well,
okay.
that's what the brake module does, though, right?
Yeah, essentially it does. So let's talk about, just we had a diagram for that. Diagram intensive, right?
Well,
let's see. So I can set that up. Maybe we can look at another question from somebody. You have any questions you want to answer that maybe you've answered before?
I don't know if anybody else has any questions regarding CS3, any components it uses, M83s, M84s, S88s, brake modules. We're kind of looking up some stuff for that.
Would you care to answer a question regarding connecting analog signals to a digital layout?
Not right now. I'm not set up to. I was kind of thinking about doing that in a newsletter article.
Okay.
That'll be a good little one. I have another topic that I can't think of at the moment.
It's one of those visual things that you'd want to see. So
yeah, it would be similar to I would be using a M83, and it would be similar to the grade crossing that I did, basically.
Okay, I am going to address at least, let's see if we can actually talk about a little bit about braking modules. And I'm going to use WinTrack to do so. So let me share a window. Okay. Gee, I wish I had an M80 or a braking module handy right now to display. Basically, how a brake module works is it's obviously, let me scale up a little bit. Okay. So there are, when you wire up a braking module, there are basically 3 sections. So and I will just do it. I will do it in kind of a weird way. So 1, 2, and an 094 piece. Okay, and just add extra tracks. So this is the section of your layout. Okay, there are basically 3 sections. Okay, let's actually make it a little less confusing. So this is the main loop. Okay, a brake module has to have 3 isolated sections, and it's essentially driven by the slider contact. Okay, and let's kind of add this, and let me actually see if I can quickly locate a signal here, and I'll add a signal. So, let's see, signal. Is this a signal? Nope. Signal. Oh geez, just when you want to find something, you can't. There it is. So I'll just add a signal, simple home signal. So so there are 3 isolated sections, and that's what these dividers in. And you need to basically use center rail insulators on these 3 sections. And the train is basically going from left to right here. If you can't haven't gotten that. The way brake module works is you have a transition area, and your brake module supplies digital feeds to 3 sections of the layout. The slowdown section, which is this middle section here, doesn't actually slow down the train using code. In other words, it's not sending information that says, all right, go from, speed 55 to speed 0. It doesn't do that. It actually switches the system over to an analog system and drops voltage to this section of track. So there's sort of this weird transition that you have to prepare for. And what it does is it switches over these 3 sections from an AC portion of track to a DC portion of track. And this transition is necessary because if you don't wire this in, well, you're just going to short out the whole layout. So that's never really a good idea. So once it switches over to DC, essentially what it does is it has this section, this middle section here, has a capacitor, or basically an electrical storage device in this sense. And when the train hits this section, and we're talking about the center slider now, when the train hits this, it actually drains the stored voltage on that, therefore reducing the voltage on the track, like you would reduce voltage on an AC layout. And that's what slows the train down. And then this last section here, right around the signal, is basically your emergency stop section. So if you have a train that runs a really long slowdown procedure when you drop voltage to it, you don't want that train to pass this block, this signal. So what's going on is you have a transition area here. You have a voltage that's going from whatever voltage is on the layout to 0. And then on this last one, it's absolutely 0. So there's no way that slider portion of the train can pass this section of the track. So, if you run a train backwards, your slider's on the locomotive, right? So you could have all these cars in front of it. So just kind of keep that in mind. We don't often run our trains backwards, but if you have a long locomotive where the slider is on the tender, that front section is going to surpass this part. That's okay. This controls where the slider is. So that's basically how a brake module works, and how to switch these brake modules, because they're actually analog devices. They can be switched through a press button, or more often we use an M83 to control these sections. And so, just kind of be aware again. So this here controls where the slider stops. And if you want your signal over here, you can. If you want it further down, that's okay. Just know that the train is going to absolutely stop here. Your slowdown section, it varies because you don't know the efficiency of the motor. Like C-sinus motors, they had sort of low resistance and they would roll a long time. You have your acceleration braking delay distance, which affects how long it takes before the train actually slows down. That's going to affect it. So normally when I run it, I maybe have 2 sections of track, maybe 2 188s, or 172 and a 188 for a slowdown section is plenty. your slider just generally doesn't extend 094 unless it's one of there's some new trains that actually have a slider that are about 10 centimeters long. So, you might want to change the transition section to a 172 rather than 094. And the same thing applies for the stop section. So I think that basically answers the question on the brake module.
Yeah. A signal will activate a brake module also.
Yeah, you can use a signal activator brake module. It's all, yeah, you can use either an M83 or a signal. There's just kind of benefits to one way, or, they're both wiring. For me, signals are basically cosmetic. Most of everything that I do on the brake module is triggered separately. But, that's me. So, all right. Anyways, next question. Oh, does the Loco sound stop in a braking module? No, yeah, it's a good question. No, that's a good question.
A bell, whistle.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very good question. Here's why this is kind of why it's pertinent. When it switches over to DC, there's actually still voltage going to the locomotive, so it's not going to stop the sound. But the other thing is, while the brake mode is activated and in DC mode, you're not going to have any control over the decoder. In other words, if the train stopped on that section and you want to change speed, it's not going to take effect until you basically switch the brake module off. Same thing applies for a sound. If you have a whistle that you turned on and it hit that brake section, that whistle is going to stay on until you release the brake module and switch it off. There's no control when you're on a brake module. And you might not get that until the first time you actually do it and you realize, yeah, you got to turn the brake module off for control. All right. Let's see. All right. How do you set up a contact track to trigger a braking module? We can do that. Let's kind of, do we want to cover that now, or do we want to look at some of the other questions?
Well,
there's another question from the same person. I just want to read that through. If you can figure out the German language, this is a good video for setting up a braking module. He's just sending us a link. Put that in the chat if you want. They can look at it. Setting up a contact track to trigger a braking module. Yeah, I can go over that really quickly here because I do it all the time. Oops, cancel it. Let's open up my VNC viewer. Let's go to the one area where I have a braking module. Oops, I'm not sharing yet, so don't need to remind me. All right, let's open up the events. Share screen. Share. Okay, in this layout here, and yeah, I really wish this was kind of working. I forgot we kind of did, we got this fixed last time and I forgot what we did. In this section,
we were prepared. That's what we did.
Yeah, we were prepared. Yeah, throw that in my face. There is another layout too. And I just threw it in there because it actually had information. So there's actually two areas in this layout that I have a brake module going through. And let's see. It's actually this trigger here. So let me zoom in and we can see what that's called. So that's a K10.
I think he was referring to how to set up a brake module physically.
Let's see. Just a second.
With insulators and the track and the wiring.
No, it says, how do you set up a contact track to trigger a braking module? Okay, so as far as the wiring goes, the contact tracks all go through an S88, which is basically, then you're setting up an event script, right? And this is K1A arrival. And I'll show you a quick script here. Actually, open that up. So basically, contact this one here, this one on the screen, actually activates BM brake module 412, which is this one here. And that's all it does. It just turns the brake module on, because the way this layout works is I have a train that's leaving this area from right to left, hits this contact, because eventually it's going to merge back onto this line, and because it's coming from this side. And that's when I need to activate this brake module, because I have a train coming from the right hand side onto this loop. So I have a convergence of two lines going to one, and I need to stop the train. So that's basically how you set up a contact track. I use arrival triggers, which is basically the moment the train reaches this contact track. As far as wiring goes, you basically need to wire up these contacts to an S88 and set up your event to do this. And the actual wiring of you're not actually wiring a contact track directly to a brake module. The brake module has three inputs, a red, yellow, and a green input. And those are basically the same green outputs that I use from an M83. And that just triggers it to go on or off, and then your basic code structure. So hopefully that answers your question. There is an article on that we've written a newsletter. You can send us a reply for that. Okay. Okay, this we don't need. I can stop sharing. Next question. Gentleman here, he has a mobile station. Is there a lesser expensive jump to a CS3 or other higher system control?
There's nothing in between. That's kind of a weird question. I don't really understand it. It's either the mobile station, then you go up to a CS3. You'll need a new power supply. 60045, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. There are two stages of CS3s. There's a CS3 and a CS3 Plus. If you're new to the Marklin setups, or you're expanding your layout, CS3 Pluses are probably the way to go. If you have a lot of like old components like K83s, K84s, S88s, not the S88AC or the S88DC, or even an S88 Link, then you'd want to go, if you have those older components, then you can go with the CS3, which is roughly about 150 less than a CS3 Plus. It's just the CS3 Plus will actually have like a built-in module that replaces one that you might have to purchase if you just bought the CS3. But if you want to step into it at lower grade, get the CS3, and then you just have to buy the peripherals when you need them. But that's probably it.
The CS3 was designed and made to be a plug-in replacement for the CS2. So it's a little bit more backwards compatible, so to say. A CS3 Plus is if someone's just starting with a CS3 and moving forward, would be how I usually explain it.
Yeah. That's good. Thanks for posting that link in the chat, Pear. Can you create a loop macro demo with a sound file repeating every X minutes? Yes, you can.
Yeah, and it would just be a delay. And
no, you can actually use the loop macro now, that because I did this. The tricky thing and the funny thing about a loop macro, and let me kind of just show this again, because I did kind of an experiment on this. I think I need to go to a simpler screen.
Yeah, on the last one, you finally figured it out.
Yeah, thanks. I just didn't want to delay our viewers, but they're a patient bunch, I'm assuming, because I look forward to your hate mail. So
I'll be sending you some.
Let's see if I actually have. Let's see if I actually have a simple loop. Actually, I should just load the demo, right?
Load the demo, yeah.
The empty, no, it's the empty config CS3 backup. I think this should do it. All right. English is the language of choice. I don't need you. I don't need that. Oh, this one's actually empty.
It's blank. Yeah.
Okay.
You erased it and saved it.
Yeah, that was not a smart move on my part. Okay, so let's kind of go into this. If I actually want to add, oof, is this the right one?
Well, you don't have anything to add because there's nothing in your keyboard.
Yeah. I'm adding a. Oof. I'm going down in flames.
You're just all over the place, aren't you?
I know, I'm going down in flames. Let me close this up. Let me go. Let's just add an article. Let's add an S88 contact. Yeah, so this one's already kind of configured for the L88. Let's see. Do I have a locomotive in here? No, don't have anything loaded.
It's a good thing you're doing this to save time.
Hey, who knew what questions we were going to be answering? All right, let's see. So you're saying I can't actually create? I forgot. How do you add a macro?
Well, are you in extended mode?
Oh, there you go. This is why it takes two brains to get all this stuff going.
Yeah, there's a lot to remember, and I remember half, well, maybe a quarter, and Curtis remembers about a third.
Yeah, I appreciate the confidence. Extended mode events. Okay. Yeah, there you go. All right, back to the other window. Add macro. Here we go. Okay, so the macro functions. Obviously, when I created it this way, it creates another loop macro. So this trigger, just basically whatever your trigger is going to be the track trigger. You're going to press it manually. Doesn't matter. It's just going to automatically go to the loop function, which is, you can see it actually says loop. So we'll open that one up. And you can add your sounds. And since I don't actually have sounds.
Well, it has, the CS3 has the sounds in it already. You could go to it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So add sound file. All right, so you can add a sound, and obviously I've got nothing to play it on, so
it'll play it on the CS3.
Yeah, so here's what you want to do: is under the sound function. Once the sound function's done, you can add a delay to it, and you just want to do, let's say, a 1 minute delay, and every minute it's just going to trigger off that sound file.
You did it in the wrong window.
Yeah, I love it when they do this.
Yeah, it constantly gets me too.
All right, so basically it's going to go every minute, or you can actually change this out to a full minute. Oh, it's 0.016 minutes, so it converts for you. So you can do it every 12 minutes if you want. And here's the caveat to it: once you enable a loop, I haven't found any way in the instructions, or at least in my testing, on how to shut that loop off through a simple push button. What you have to do to turn that loop off is you have to stop power to the track and then restart power to the track. So that's sort of the caveat when using a loop function. But loop is great for, like if you had stations out, or, something like birds chirping or whatever, or, whatever you want. It's your imagination. It's, again, as Rick said, it's kind of a hobby. You should have fun with it. We can't tell you how many stupid things we've done just for fun.
So, we normally try to forget them.
it sometimes it boils down on which one of us has insulted the other person. So all right, so let's get rid of that. So that's that's it for that. Now, where was I in the window? Because I actually saw some other questions here.
That's all the questions we have. I think we've answered them all.
No, these are in the chat box. So some of these questions are in the chat window.
No, we've covered them all. Okay, we need more questions, people.
Drive link is probably. Oh, we do have a question on YouTube. If you don't use a brake module, is the alternative a signal and stop track section? Is there another way to slowly stop in a station? Yeah, unfortunately, the only two ways that I know to actually get a train to actually slow down is either through programming, which I didn't recommend, unless you're really an advanced programmer and you're going to do really nerdy things that are sort of beyond everybody. Because I even wrote somewhat of a script for just 2 trains. And frankly, it was a while ago, and I almost dread going back to expand it because it was so difficult to do. The brake module has basically a capacitor drive. There are, dare I say it, there are different brake modules that are out there from manufacturers. The Marklin ones have never really failed me. And there are even some plans for people who want to build some. Um, you can even go that route if you really wanted to. Uh, the only sort of difficulty is it needs to be triggered by something. If you're using signal lights, digital signal lights, you can just use to trigger the brake modules yourself. The signal lights don't actually have any slowdown section, but other than that, it's just a stop section. So usually with the signal stop section combination, it's a signal with a brake module or a signal with an M84, which will stop the train immediately and no slowdown section. So the M84 just basically kills power to the center rail, and that just stops the train. So it's jerky. Recommendation, I guess, for most layouts, use M84s in hidden yards or places where you don't need to see the train slow down. Use brake modules in visual areas because it creates a great visual interest. It's just so much fun to see a train slow down. The coding issue only really works if it's the only train on that line. Until unless there's further development, is the way the software works. It's just kind of difficult to do. Okay, anything else? Let's see. Questions, text, no questions. Let's go back to let's see, I did answer that question on the newsletter.
Even if people want to raise their hand to ask a question, they can do so. Feel free.
We can always, I don't know, dare we go over the new items catalog for summer?
Summer new items just came out, yeah.
We do have a request. Some people have been asking about newsletters prior to Rick and I, and these are newsletters that are written by Dr. Tom Catherall. We are looking into that. We do have some archives, but our archives only kind of go up to 2007. We did post them. We do have them now in a resource so we can access those. If you guys have requests for those, just kind of let us know. I don't believe they're indexed in any way.
No, just by volume and issue.
Yeah, years and issues. So yeah, after I think it was 2007. So we have a gap from 2007 to 2014 or through 2014. I guess we can make a little bit of a plea. If you guys have any newsletters like that, let us know. We might be able to.
Yeah,
it might help us fill out the archives if we don't have them.
Fill in the gaps, even though most of the information is out of date, just because the technology has surpassed it. But there is still some relevant tidbits in there that we've seen.
Okay, yeah. So we do have a question. A read switching contact can identify different locomotives. No, it doesn't. Anything that you can use, like a magnet, even a reed switch, or contact tracks, it doesn't identify. It doesn't identify which locomotive.
You can only set it up on the left side or the right side of the locomotive to specify a left or right, a certain locomotive, so to say, like we used to do with the shuttle route.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're using, yeah, as long, yeah, let's, I guess I was the one that got a little confused. A reed switch references a magnetic reed switch.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually have done something like that. Most of my contact events work off of contact tracks. But
Yeah.
if I have something specific, like I want my shuttle to run to do a loop, which is what Rick was referring to,
Right.
I actually set up a magnet that was offset so that it would only read if the locomotive had the magnet on the right side of the locomotive. So if it was going the opposite direction, it wouldn't trigger that magnetic reed switch.
Right. And we have a friend that actually puts a uh, a magnet on his freight train so they don't stop in the station like the regular trains.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is funny. So yeah, you can also use, you can all use yeah, if you have specialized running, like as he was saying, you want a train to bypass the station, then you can separate a group of trains, just by having magnets on them. But if you are trying to identify a specific locomotive, then no, you can't do that. So that's sort of the issue there. You cannot identify specific locomotives, but if you want to like classify freight over passenger cars, you can use magnets for those just to trigger that. So, all right, that was good. There was kind of a reply to wave files. I can read that comment to you guys. In response to the question about wave files, if you're missing locomotive wave files, you can go to marklin.de, select service, then downloads, agree to the licensing, and you will see some options for a sound library for the mDecoder tool. So like I said earlier, if you download the software for the mDecoder tool, then you can actually access some of these sound files. It is a large download, as he states, but that's if you want to download all the sounds. I believe there's also a method where you can just download specific sounds at a time. Um, but it can be a challenge. If you guys are real experts on locomotives, it may be less of a challenge. But honestly, I wouldn't know one compressor from another one. I wouldn't
Well,
know one. I wouldn't know one shoveling coal sound from another locomotive. So
there's several sound files in the library that are not specifically train sounds. I mean, there's dining car sounds. There's a sound of a helicopter for some reason. There's you know
that's
uh,
probably the police set that they had.
probably. Well, it makes me think of is Pink Floyd. So
I've never seen a helicopter take off from a locomotive car though.
well, it depends on if it's moving or not.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Where's my YouTube window? I didn't really. Should check YouTube feed, see if there's any questions. All right. Anything else? No questions? No text comments?
Funny stories.
Anecdotes? All right. Are you all members of the Insider Club or just the Digital Club? That's a good question. Where's the...
Well, we knew it was going to be a short one.
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to have this whole question. I think I had somebody who had problem trying to trying to get changes registered into his locomotive, but that's kind of extensive.
Yeah, I don't know of any questions that we haven't answered in emails or
Here's actually a diagram that we got from one of our readers, and let me I don't know if I can post it on the screen, but let me hide it because you really don't need to. See if I can open the window. BitTorrents. Paint 3D, that's what I'm looking for. Sort of the poor man's way to do this. Paste. All right, so let's look at really quickly. There's a break module diagram. Is a loop macro with a whistle setup the same as a wave file? My brain is just imploding on that. A loop macro and a whistle, it's kind of worded in a weird way. Essentially what happens if you have a loop macro, all you're doing is you're adding a wave file into the loop macro. So the question doesn't really apply in that sense, because anytime you add a sound, it's going to be set up the same way in any event you do, whether it's a loop macro or just an event itself. So hopefully if that's what you're referring to, it's the same. But setting up a whistle is a different context. So you're setting up the whistle to be stored. You're setting up a wave file to be stored in your system, and then you're going to add that sound into whatever event you want. And you're trying to get the whistle to go off every 3 minutes. Okay, so there's a couple things that you need to consider when you're actually setting up a sound in an event. Whistles can be tricky, and just because of the way that sound files can be worked into. Let's see if I can do a demo on that here. Where's my VNC viewer? There you go. Let's see, share screen, VNC viewer. Okay, so let's kind of look at an event here. And let's just, so we're not confusing ourselves, because I was pushing so many buttons that will be confusing. All right. So let's say, let me add actually locomotive with sounds. So you got one on the database, the 3.9 maybe? 3.9 series. Hopefully it'll have sounds. Franco Crosties don't have sounds. Electric locomotives would probably be a poor choice. So let's try that. Okay. Yeah, so this has some sounds. All right. So let's say I actually create my event. And again, it's going to be the same whether it's a looped event or a non-looped event. I guess if we want to have a looped, it's okay. So let's go into the loop. We're going to add, let's put this over here. We're going to add a whistle. Now, the problem with whistles is that they're set up they can be a looped whistle. In other words, the audio engineers will have a segment of it that loops itself. So as long as the whistle is on, it's going to constantly go. It's a long whistle. And even I've noticed even on the short whistle programs, they're not actually short. They're just the program itself for a long or short whistle is programmed to the CS3. When you add them into an event, it doesn't actually have a short or long duration. So you actually have to do two things. You actually have to put the whistle in twice, and the first one has to basically be the on switch. So let's see if I can do this. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. So I'm clicking the wrong button. So you actually have to change the value for on. Okay, so what happens is you're actually turning the whistle on, and then you have to turn the whistle off. Otherwise, once you if you left out this step and you turn it on, it's going to constantly stay on, because it's not, even if it was a long or short whistle function on the left panel, it no longer applies because you're adding it to event script. So when you turn it on, you have to remember that you're going to need an extra step to turn it off. And one way to gauge how long that is you're just going to set the delay. So it's going to be as long, let's say if you wanted to have it for like a short whistle, you could probably program it for, let's say, 500 milliseconds or a half a second, right? Because 1,000. So this should technically go on for half a second and then shut itself off. So you always have to be aware of that. If you had an announcement sound, for instance, an announcement sound will have a duration of, let's say, 30 seconds. If you put an announcement sound on here and you turn it on, well, it'll run the 30 seconds and it's going to stay on past that 30 seconds. The opposite is true. Like if this is an announcement sound and I only had it set for 1 second and it was a 30-second sound bite, it's going to cut off after 1 second. It's not going to stay on. So you have to know the duration of the sound file you want, and then you still have to program it to turn off. So that is going to affect the sound. Now, when you want to affect a loop, and in this sense, okay, so in this sense, I have the sound going on for half a second, turns off for a half a second, but I only want this to go every 5 minutes. Well, this is where the last step of your delay, think of it as your timing delay. So right here, I would set it for like 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes. And how this will now work is when you hit the trigger, it's going to make this turn on for half a second, then it'll turn off, and then it's going to be 5 minutes before it loops back and does the same thing again. So that's how you set up certain specific sound loops. And it gets tricky because one, it's not like we always understand how sound files work, but again, when you have a station announcement that is programmed to run, 10 seconds or whatnot, you have to account for the duration of that sound file. And sometimes it takes playing around. And it's also a little imprecise because of the fact that when you have, let's say, multiple trains on your layout and they're switching multiple signals on there, you add sort of that millisecond or second delay because you don't know when in that cycle of your system processing, because the system can be processing in a very linear step-by-step fashion. It may not be running in a parallel fashion where you've got two operations going at once. So you kind of be aware of that when that stuff overlaps. So that in and of itself was probably as nerdy of an answer as I can give you. And I'm sorry, guys, if I lost you. Okay. That is that. Back to, so yeah, in the sense of your question, you want a whistle to go off every 3 minutes. Yeah, just make your last delay 3 minutes, and then it should work for you. That is there. Somebody asked a question about our informal meets. You want to answer that one?
Yes, we don't have a set schedule for them. We haven't talked about the next one. We don't know when we're going to do it, basically. And what we do is we put a post out on the Marklin users net about an informal Zoom meeting. My guess is we wouldn't have one until, well, it's hard to say.
Yeah. We had a heated debate last time, and it's kind of like putting a delay on us doing another one. I can only dispute people's claims for so long before I give up. Okay, I did kind of want to go back to, and it's probably a moot point that we do this, but to some degree we're looking for filler. Let me show a quick screen here. All right, so this is basically a signal light that's connected to a brake module. And the wires down here in the bottom, it's funny how they use the different color coding because these are the wires that actually come with the signals, but essentially they're just you're just track wires.
Yeah, it was basically track power.
Yeah, yellow is the red wire. and the red and green here is basically, I think, would be the brown
The brown,
track
yeah.
connection, right?
Yeah.
So the setup here that I'm showing
Let me,
here,
let me just say, they give you that option in case you want to power your signals from a secondary power source and not raw track power. But being their LED signals, they're not going to take a whole lot of power.
and it being digital, it doesn't really absorb much. LEDs take more current than they do power. Um, Now the layout here, as you can see, wires 1 and 2 are basically still taking they actually are taking in track power. And to some degree, it goes into the signal, and then obviously you don't see the circuitry, but essentially it filters back out through the brown and red, purple and red and green wires, and that's what actually controls the activation, which is under 4, 3, and 5. That turns on or off the brake module, and they kind of correlate to the sections above, which are the sections of the track. And you can see on the left one, that's the transition that I spoke about. The middle section is your slowdown area, and your right hand is your emergency stop. And it kind of says so on the diagram here, right above the S slanted ramp and the stop. Now the thing about this is that you're using the signal to activate the brake module. So it's what we can see is it operates in unison. So whenever you activate the signal to red, it turns on the brake module. The way that I like to operate things is I don't always I want my brake module to be independent of the signal light. Um, just for there's specific reasons, like if you use the circuit track for instance, and you want the brake signal to go red once the train is completely passed, that's great, because then you can activate the brake signal then. But I work in a world where once the engine passes, the signal goes red, but I don't want the brake module activated until the complete train passes over it. So therefore I operate brake modules independently from signal lights. So all this wiring here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it wouldn't be wired to my signal. My 4, 3, and 5 connections would be wired to a K83 or an M83. And 1 and 2 is good because you still need the digital code to go through the brake module when the brake module's off, and that's where 1 and 2 come in. It takes track signal in. So, right, just kind of wanted to point that out for you guys who probably are not really familiar or haven't really dealt with brake modules that much, or signals.
It is kind of a daunting task at first.
Or
But
okay.
once you do it once or twice, you understand it.
Okay, and the question is, where do the wires 6 and 3 connect to? These are basically a power input feed. Normally, I connect it to a red and a brown wire. That's your basic track feed wire. It's the same thing as 1 and 2. Um, this, yeah. How do you explain that? It is red and brown, isn't it? Should be. Right, Rick?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the way we use them, yes.
Yeah, it's confusing. They didn't really update this sort of the way that we had it. I mean, it's all this old wiring scheme. But if you kind of think about how the wiring, like if 4, 3, and 5, let's see if I can actually make an explanation of this without actually confusing people even more. If you take off these signal wires from the signal, right, and you connect an M83 to it or K83 to it, essentially that will tell you what that yellow wire. And yellow on the old transformers, you had two options on the old transformer, and that's what I based it off of. Old transformers had a yellow and brown and a red and brown, and essentially the yellow is the red. um and then so that just kind of leaves me with, by default, considering that 6 is going to be the brown wire, because in a switching operation, if you use an old switch box, this is sort of like that common wire, which is essentially a brown wire. um but if you're activating the signal with to trigger the brake module, yeah, it's just follow the manuals. But in our sense, we don't really do that. All we need is to control output. So uh, just such a bad it's such a bad explanation to do.
You just, I know. I mean, I just see you with a shovel, just
Yeah,
going down that rabbit hole.
digging deeper. Okay, so all right. So Carlos, I hate to say it. So the way that we do this, I don't even use these wires. This red, purple, and red green. I don't use this bundle of wires here because all your digital code is going through 1 to 2 to switch the signals here, and that's all I use it for. Okay, so essentially the output is what controls the brake module if you're going to do that. And once you have the red and the blue connected to it, um, it's more or less, what is this wire? And I'm pretty sure it's just the brown wire. So I would just go with that. So it's like,
Been so long since I've done it.
yeah, yeah.
Basically, we use a M83 or K83 to turn the brake module on and off. And at that point, the signal is just decoration. All it does is change aspects. It's very expensive because it's digital, but that's all we need it for, because we like the separation of the signal changing at a different time than the brake module changes. And there's, like Curtis said, we like to have it slightly more prototypical, even though nobody will probably notice, but you'll see the signal change and we can put a delay before we turn off the brake module. And for a couple of reasons, like Curtis said, that way the train goes all the way through the signal before it loses power, in case there's a slider on the end powering all the lights inside the cars. Or in prototypical, if you're talking about real life, passenger trains don't leave just because they have a green signal. They leave on a scheduled time. So the signal can be green, but that doesn't mean they're going to leave. So you can, and what we've done on some friends' layouts is we've programmed a delay in his station so that a signal will change to green, but there'll be a set delay before the passenger train leaves. And it adds a little bit of realism, and it actually, what it does a lot more than that is people say, oh, you have a green signal, how come the train's not leaving? Where, we basically sit for a second and then the train leaves and everything is good. So it adds a little bit more realism for the people who can notice it.
Yeah, and one thing I should probably mention some history here too, which is another reason why we kind of did this. And this was something that we discovered, which is now something that you kind of need to use for backup. Um, when we initially used everything in unison, we actually were having some failing points because, and this was sort of probably early in my history using this stuff. The signal lights weren't changing over. And so there were two things I learned from it. Once my signal lights change over and I actually connected to my brake module, then I would have crashes because I had no control over the signal light. I couldn't get them to switch over. So that led us to running our brake modules independently. The other thing that we learned from it is that the signals were failing is because my digital code signal control code was degraded enough because I wasn't running any boosters at the time. And that was my first indicator. I had plenty of power to run the trains, but I was losing control. And when you make your signals operate in unison that way and you can't control your signal to stop a train, well, that's just problems. So it was partially solved by me adding boosters. So when you have digital control issues, then you need to start looking at whether you need a power booster to reinforce that digital code. And frankly, even though when I separated the control of a brake module from a signal light, even though my signal failed to change over, I still had control of the brake module so I could still run my layout. So there's another reason why we had it separated. So trying to go through that. Now we do have a hand raised. So
Yeah, you're sharing your screen still.
Yeah, we do have our hand raised. So if there are any other questions on that, you can send them out. But Per, we're gonna let you talk if you have a speaker ready. All right, you can unmute your microphone. Hello.
Hello, good evening. Norway. I'd like to have a go at your explanation with the signal and the breaking module. I actually used the setup you put on your schema. And I can confirm that the red and green that's actually connected to the brown in my old, I used two power sources, one to power the lighting and the brake module. So you use a separate transformator to get the light going and use the brake module. So the red and green is actually brown, as you said.
Okay, great. Thanks for confirming that. So like you said, if you didn't hear that correctly, the red and green is actually the brown wire. And I think you mentioned you used another transformer if you wanted to.
Use
But
an old 16 volt Marklin transformator to power the braking module and the light.
okay, excellent. Well, thank you for that.
I rather like your intake to it. Do you have that written down in one of your newsletters in skipping the signal altogether, or might that be a topic for coming newsletter?
I'm sorry, Per, I didn't quite catch that because I'm getting a little bit of noise. So
When you use braking modules, you skip the lightning altogether. You just use the braking model and skip the lightning, the stop signal.
yeah.
Do that.
Have you
Yeah, we
described
can.
that in a newsletter, or might that be a topic for coming newsletter?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, we can. If it's information you're looking for, I can't remember if we actually wrote an article on that one. Yeah, but yeah, it's a really simple process. M83s, K83s, switching over the brake modules. And like I said in the diagram here, just to run your signal independently, all you need are these two wires here. You don't even need this three. You don't even have to plug these in at all. Just a signal. Now this, I forget which series of lights these are, but I don't think they've actually changed the wiring format on that.
If
So
that's for the MFX light signal.
yeah, it could be. Well, there was definitely a difference between the 76 300 series signals and the 76 400 series, which are the MFX ones. The 76 300 series, those were the ones that required the programming clip. And the funny thing is, I think I can't remember the old 76 300 series. Once you program the signal head, the mast, you can move them around to different bases.
Yes.
I don't believe that's true for the newer MFX ones, which to me indicates that the programming code might actually be in the base and not the head.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a reason to move them around now. We don't have to have them in a certain spot to program them. You can do it anywhere on the layout because they're MFX.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think although I like your seminars, it's great fun to watch, and I think I learned a lot and I tested a lot of things. Most of it works, some of it does not work.
Yeah.
Anyway, great fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Per. So.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Remove, promote, disable.
To remove the talking permission.
No. I just want to click. I don't want to bump them from the meeting. So.
No, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Couple comments. Let's see. Anything else? Anything you want to say or anything?
No, we've come to the end. We have no comments. We have no questions.
Let's check your email again here. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't think we have anything new on the
No, if we had this webinar tomorrow, we could show our stuff. We're each getting a package from Marklin tomorrow.
I don't know if we ever want to do a very fast run through of the new items catalog.
No, I don't think we should.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, will this be a short meeting? Shall we call it?
Yeah, unless there's any other questions. I mean, it's what, 20 minutes early-ish, 22 minutes early. We knew it was going to be a very short presentation. So
Yeah, this has been sort of a full year for us. We've done, this is number 12, and I guess if you guys are looking for volume 1, you'll never see it. It was our first time. It was probably pretty bad. So
yeah, we don't acknowledge it exists.
yeah, we're getting hammered by our critics. So yes, we do have critics. Anything else? No news on any updates from the CS3.
No, haven't heard anything, but the factory doesn't tell us anything. So
Okay. Let's see. Can you change the volume of an individual sound of an MFX decoder? For
yes.
example, the running the lower sounds but keep the whistle unchanged.
Yes.
Good question.
I'm not going to explain how to do it because that's on a different computer. But yes, you can.
Just so you know, that probably has to be done through the M decoder tool.
Yes.
The volume control that's in the CS3 is basically the master volume for that locomotive. So as you wanted to do, you want to be able to edit independent sounds, and it gets tricky because in the M decoder tool, you have to identify the specific sound. It's sort of like editing a WAV file. You have to pick the particular WAV file that you want to adjust. In your case, in the question here, he says he wants to lower the running sounds but keep the whistle unchanged. Well,
yeah, you can do it easily.
You need to actually do it backwards. Okay. And what I mean is that if you want to lower the running sounds, well, there's multiple running sounds generally that apply. You got your coal shoveling, your compressor, your grate noise, and you don't want to have to lower the volume of like 10 sounds when what you really want to do is you want to make the whistle louder. So in this sense, you'd make the whistle louder if possible, and then you're going to lower the master volume, right? So that you can more or less think that your whistle is unchanged. So it's sort of semantics at this time, but it's kind of easier to edit the one sound than it is to edit the 10 sounds.
And from what I remember, it's been a while since I stumbled across it. Each individual sound is set to its own volume. And let's just use, for example, 255 as a max volume, which is normally what you see in the central station. And so your operating sound may be at volume 175, and your whistle sound may be at volume 210, and coal shoveling may be at 185. So they're all going to be like different volumes, and so you have to guess how much you want to turn down whatever sound. It's not a daunting prospect, but it's not that all the volumes are set at 255 and you can go down from there. You need to, it's scalable and proportional to that scale. So you can't just set all the sounds at volume 175 and expect it to sound correct. So it's
Right,
a little bit
yeah.
more complicated, but it's still easily doable in the M decoder tool program.
Yeah, when you get involved with audio mixing, it gets, it's always a challenge. When they record these sound bites, they're trying to get the best quality they can, and usually they're going to be at all sort of like the maximum volumes. So when you actually need to mix them down so that they have balance, that's sort of the challenge that the engineers need to do. And then if you want to alter those, well, then, it's at least it's available to do so. But, again, you're changing the overall mix of something. Hopefully, with the whistle, for instance, it's not at its max volume. So
now whistles are usually, because people like them, whistles and bells are usually pretty loud. Same with the steam chuff. And then it's just a matter of being able to hear the auxiliary sounds during or over those sound bass sounds, so to say, primary sounds. What do you want to call them?
yeah, and I guess the funny thing is, and just kind of being sort of not really serious here, locomotive sounds, you can edit those, but you can't really sort of make them better quality sounds, as opposed to, like, if you wanted to add sounds to your CS3, which was the initial topic on this, and go through an external speaker. Well, station sounds or something like that, or ambient sounds, you can make those really loud, and they'll probably sound a lot better, because you're not limiting yourself to like the 1 inch or 3/4 inch speaker that's on a locomotive.
Yeah. And now he's asking, can the individual sound CV volume control be accessed from the CS3 configuration window? No, you need to do it on the programmer. So now whether you can do that, I doubt you can. No, you can't. You can't do it from a factory installed decoder. We're talking about a retrofit decoder where you can edit each sound volume.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with Rick, because I think the sound mix volumes are not actually CV controlled. The CV controls the output settings. When you're getting into the mix, yeah, the programming tool allows you to kind of adjust the mix, and again, they're not really CV related values.
Yeah, the decoder basically plays the sounds, and what we're talking about, the individual sound files and changing the volumes, that's before you program it into the decoder. So I guess you could equate it to an old cassette tape. You can't change the individual volumes on a cassette tape of each instrument unless it was recorded that way, and unless you do it before you record it onto the tape.
That reminds me, when I was doing a recording, I had some guy, a friend of mine, and I didn't see him do that, but for one song and one section of the song, he upped the recording volume on it. So it's just like I'm listening to the tape, and all of a sudden it gets really loud.
Sounds like something I'd do to you.
Yeah, definitely. So. All right.
All right.
Let's see, anything else? No other questions?
No, I say we call it 15 minutes early. I think we can call it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for the year. Hopefully, so we may, in the future, I believe we may have shorter run sessions. We have actually completed a gamut of topics on the webinars, basically introduction to the CS3. We will hopefully keep eyes out for new topics, and then, save some questions if you have them, to be answered online. Obviously, I guess we've proven without some pre-planning or foresight and knowing what we're going to be covering, we can streamline at least demonstrations. So
yeah, we like to show that we have problems like you do also. So that's why we don't bother to have everything set up and ready to go unless it's a specific topic we're talking about. So, and even then we have trouble. One last question. Okay.
okay to use isopropyl alcohol to clean the slider and wheels on locomotives.
Yes, it is. I do it when I do maintenance. A Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol usually is what I use for those. If it's really caked on, you got to scrape it off first, or there are other ways to do it, but I don't want to put them out on this venue. If you wanted to email me, I would tell you how to do it.
I think you had a consideration regarding any kind of scraping.
Well, if I have to, I mean, if it's caked on really bad, you'd be sitting there for quite a while cleaning off with alcohol.
Yeah, but you don't want to use something like a penknife. You want to use something.
No, I usually use a screwdriver. It's about the right width. It's not really sharp, and just gently take the dirt off.
You can use kerosene or alcohol.
You can use either kerosene or alcohol. Yes.
I use mostly kerosene because I have a gallon of it.
Yeah,
I think it's evaporating more than I've actually used. So,
I think so too. Next time I'm down, I need to get some more from you.
Yeah, it's just so cheap. And again, it doubles as smoke fluid, so there's no harm in using it. So I don't have to buy alcohol. I can't really use alcohol in the smoke unit.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I've done it.
Oh, and how
I did a test to see what will and won't work. I mean, it smells funny and it burns faster, but you don't get flames shooting out of your locomotive.
All right, let me know when you throw propane in one.
Well, yeah, it's already a gas, so not sure what would happen there.
Yeah, try to keep that down. As far as the marking containers, have marking containers arrived at the dock yet? We don't know.
Call the head office in Missouri. Ask them.
Yeah, pre-ordered items. Yeah. I hate to say it. Welcome to Marklin World. Some of the stuff, I guess you can say, is announced well before they're actually in full production. So it does, it's sort of something that we waited, and you probably have this experience too. You waited a year for it. And
well, we're getting locomotive tomorrow that we've been waiting 2.5 years for.
Yeah, we're really patient. So we're actually lucky to get this. So we're excited to get that box open. But you need to contact the headquarters. Also, the interesting note, I wanted to talk about the call forwarding.
Yes, the head office got a new phone system installed, which is great. And for those of you who are left, if you happen to call the head office and you have a technical question, it forwards straight to our phone numbers, both mine and Curtis, which is the same phone number, which forwards to our cell phones. Okay. The only problem, which we didn't realize until this happened, was if, so to say, we get a dropped call on our cell phone, we can't call you back because the incoming phone call is from our office because it's forwarded through there. So unfortunately, we don't have a way of calling you back.
Yeah, and when we do call back the head office to see what they need, they have no idea why we're calling.
Yeah. So yeah, call us directly. Have you had any problems with tracking for the new 2020 39380 locomotive? We don't know of any manufacturing problems. We don't hear about anything like that unless we get a warranty issue. So I don't even know what the 39380 locomotive is.
I'm just punching it up now.
Yeah, share your screen so I can see it.
Yeah, let me get it up here first. Class 38 locomotive.
And we'd probably have to take the same stance as Germany and say there's nothing wrong with it and check your track alignment. How's that?
Track alignment.
What type of locomotive is this? I got too many.
It's a class 38.
Oh, it's P8. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. If you have something and it seems to be jumping, maybe check your bogies, see if there's anything like, like some of them that have wires coming out of it from like a slider or something like that. The wire might be kinking or binding up, preventing it from rotating.
And we should explain, not that a lot of people are going to see this, but explain the warranty process here in the United States is To have the locomotive serviced, you need to contact the dealer you bought it from. And if you bought it from Europe, you need to contact and send the locomotive back to them in Europe. If you bought it from a North American dealer, you contact the dealer and see if they would like to service it or replace it themselves. If they don't want to do that, you can contact us or have the dealer contact us. And if you have sent it back to the dealer, I should say, here in North America, they will send it specifically to us and we will service it and send it back. So before you send the locomotive to us, we need the dealer's approval to work on the locomotive, meaning they would rather not work on it because it's beyond their technical skills, and then you're allowed to send it to us, but only North American dealers. Any other dealers offshore, you have to contact them and send the locomotive back to them.
Support your local dealer.
Yes.
All right. Well,
All right. Well, that gave us another 8 minutes. So if we wait another 6 minutes, we'll be at the full 2 hours. So we can tap our fingers on our desk and you can stare at us doing that. Yeah, you're welcome
right.
for the warranty.
You're welcome for the warranty issue. Yeah.
And you'll need to provide a receipt to us also.
And hopefully the information we gave you was spot on. Great.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Well, we'll see you guys at some point. I'm assuming we'll still do another one the second month or second Wednesday next month. But if we don't have a topic, it might just be answering questions.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's possible when we have topics, we'll do more full webinars. I think it's possible at this stage without topics, we can run questions as long as we get them. So the webinars may be shorter at this point, unless we, we come up with some content. So the series so far, again, has been about learning or getting the most out of your CS3, or at least the systems nowadays.
And the components that go with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for joining in. We appreciate all your questions and input. Hope you guys are well and safe and you continue having fun in the hobby. So any sign out messages from you?
No, enjoy your hobbies.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for joining in.